Hi, teachers, and welcome to the Alive Sensory Drive. Our goal is to develop a protocol to improve teachers' self-efficacy and knowledge with sensory self-regulation skills that can be incorporated into the classroom. The A in Alive is for awareness, the L is for learning, I is for impact, V is for value, and E is for the education that it will bring. This e-learning module is focused on understanding how sensory processing skills impact students' performance in the classroom. The Alive program includes 3 parts. Number 1 is the teacher e-learning module on education for sensory processing and self-regulation information. Number 2 is the implementation of an in-class sensory self-regulation curriculum that is delivered as a 5-minute video 3 days per week. The Zones of Regulation was the chosen curriculum. Number 3, a monthly professional team collaboration meeting on sensory processing activities in the classroom. There are 4 objectives for this module. Number 1 is understand the link between the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system in sensory self-regulation. Number 2 is identify the role of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system in sensory self-regulation. Number 3 is to recognize how neurochemical messages are communicated in the body that affect sensory self-regulation. And number 4, define the goal of sensory processing interventions for the parasympathetic nervous system in the classroom. Now, for Objective 1, let's understand the link between the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system has a vital role in whether a student is calm, attentive, and focused. The central nervous system is made up of the brain and heart. As you can see here on this picture, it has the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. This is how the nerves branch and run throughout the body from the PNS. The nervous system is broken down into the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system is where most sensory regulation issues, concerns, as well as solutions are processed. The PNS is broken down into the somatic and the autonomic nervous system. From the autonomic nervous system, it is further broken down into the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system tells the body to fight, flight, or run, or to get away from a situation that is overwhelming. The parasympathetic nervous system tells the body to calm down, that everything is going to be okay. When it comes to sensory self-regulation, we focus primarily on the parasympathetic information that is being sent throughout the nervous system up to the brain. According to evidence-based research, it states that children with sensory processing disorder have compromised sympathetic nervous system activity that affects their behavioral responses. According to Way, he theorized that limited autonomic nervous system functioning might limit a child's intrinsic motivation for play and other functional in-class behaviors. For example, an overactive sympathetic nervous system might result in a stressful response to any experience, while an underactive parasympathetic system may not provide enough support needed for the self-regulation in class. Let's talk for a moment how the peripheral nervous system and sensory self-regulation relates more. Sensory self-regulation is defined as the brain's ability to process information received from all 5 senses: touch, taste, smell, sight, and vision, plus 2 others. Those are proprioception, which is joint sense of motion, and vestibular, which is spinning and movement motions. Once this sensory information is received by the brain, it's going to give one of 3 responses. One response may be a normal response to the information received. A second possible response may be a hyper response, and this is observed when a child is overwhelmed by running, screaming, melting down, throwing objects. The third is a hypo response, whereby the brain does not receive enough information. That's when you see the child who is withdrawn, they have a lack of interaction as well as eye contact. Based on how these peripheral nerves run throughout the body, they will respond if it is hyperactive information as increased behaviors, increased movement, running, pinching, screaming, scratching, biting, throwing items, and decreased attention and focus. As all sensory information is coming into the brain, it is being processed. A person's physiological reactivity may affect sensory processing style and thus in turn be an important determinant of behavior. This is according to evidence-based research by Dunn and is the reason why you see some of the behaviors in your classroom. This is a self-regulation critter meter by the program Stick Kids. It is a picture-based sensory self-regulation program whereby the rabbit represents a fast speed and the turtle represents a slow speed. The goal is to be in the middle, just like the stick figure, which is self-regulated and just right. For our third objective, let's recognize how neurochemical messages are communicated in the body that affects sensory self-regulation. Let's talk about how nerve signals are transmitted. Signals arrive at the cell body across synapses or through dendrites, which is shown here in this picture, stimulating the neuron to generate its own signal sent along the long axon to other nerve or muscle cells. These signals may arrive from many other locations and be transmitted to others. This conditioning the synapses by use, giving the system its complexity and ability to learn. As far as your classroom application, nerves send signals to the brain to interpret how information is being processed, creating a hyper response, a normal self-regulated response, or a hypo response. Brain neurochemicals are released during these nerve impulses. These chemicals influence fight, flight response, or a calming response from the autonomic nervous system. Sensory activities promote calm responses from the parasympathetic nervous system. The desired neurochemicals to be released during sensory activities that are calming include serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, as well as norepinephrine. These hormones are to help with thinking clearly, using good judgment, considering consequences of behavior, accurately interpreting social cues, regulate mood and affect, and learn new skills. For our fourth objective, we are going to identify the goal of sensory processing activities for the nervous system in the classroom. The goal of sensory processing activities is to promote self-regulation. This is defined as the ability of the nervous system to have a middle ground or comfort zone of regulation as the student interacts with his environment. When these sensory tools are provided, a child will be able to attend to tasks, stay calm, transition from one activity to another, follow directions, and process academic information. Sensory information is constantly being received in your classroom from the five senses plus proprioception as well as vestibular input. For the students who have a low parasympathetic function, then it is associated with stress vulnerability, developmental and cognitive delays, or emotional and behavioral overreactivity, and therefore provides further support for the belief that the parasympathetic functioning is an important factor for behavioral adaptations in your environment, according to evidence-based research. Let's discuss how all of this information on the central nervous system relates to your classroom. The teacher's goal for sensory processing skills are to monitor self-regulation responses and identify if activities should be provided to turn the brain up, which is to provide more input for faster processing speed, or to turn the brain down to provide activities to slow the processing of information down. When selecting different sensory activities, some brain down classroom calmers include lowering your lighting, adding classical or nature style music, allowing kids to use squeeze balls or fidgets. Rocking motions are calming. Slow motions, slow type of video YouTube motions. Encourage your kids to use seat cushions. Weighted vests and items provide a calming input to the body. Push-pull items such as carts or crates are calming. Shoulder presses, massage, back rub, as well as offering alternative seating in the classroom. As far as your brain up, your classroom excitement type of activities, you can brighten your lights. You can do fast jumping, fast rolling, fast music, fast dancing videos, fast motion, running, fast obstacle course. These type of things will actually turn the brain up in this processing speed. The sensory curriculum that was chosen for this Alive project includes the zones of regulation. These activities should be incorporated daily by providing a sensory language that allows the child to identify if they are in the green zone, which is calming, the yellow zone, which is starting to get frustrated, or the red zone, which is angry. There is also a blue zone for kids who feel tired or depressed. The zones of regulation was developed by an occupational therapist. Her name is Leah Kuipers. She works with the company Social Thinking that encourages executive functioning, awareness of feelings, sensory activities, classroom worksheets, and the use of daily expressions in the classroom. According to evidence-based research, in summarizing all of the information in this first e-module, is adequate homeostasis of parasympathetic activity provides a basis for the behavioral flexibility and skill adaptations to cope with the multiple and changing inputs within your classroom. By the use of these important intervention strategies, it will help a child to maintain or regain homeostasis or self-regulation. And that will help the teacher adjust his or her interaction style or methods. Adequate behavioral self-regulation will likely provide a foundation for higher level skills needed for participation in functional activities, social skills, as well as classroom academics. This concludes our first e-learning module.